Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today and appreciate folks for waiting around for us to start the live stream this morning. We are very excited to introduce both designers and developers and engineers on the Calcite design system team to introduce what's new with 5.0, including some CDN updates, some of our action redesign, token updates, some feature enhancements, and also breaking changes with our release. First, I would love to introduce the team. So we're going to do some speaker introductions, and then we'll dive right into the content. So first up, myself, my name is Kitty Hurley, and I am a product engineer on the team. And we also are going to be answering our favorite board game of all time. And my answer is Scrabble, because I love the strategy of trying to get the most points for the smallest word. Next up, I'll introduce Mel. Mel, tell us about yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Mel Dinteman. I'm a senior product engineer, and my favorite board game is Tornado Rex because I love the chaos of it.
I want to hear more about that. I love that. Thanks so much, Mel. Next up, Aaron.
Hi everyone, I'm Aaron Shetland. I'm a product designer and I'm terrible at picking favorites, so I'm going to use my daughter's favorite right now is Settlers of Catan.
That is a great
She
strategy
loves
game,
it.
Aaron. Love
Yeah.
that. Matt, you're up next.
Hey everyone, I'm Matt. I'm a senior product designer, and my favorite board game all time is hefty, but I think I'll go with Downforce, which is racing themed game where you can either bet on yourself winning the race or other people, which is a really fun way to win by potentially losing. And in honor, I'm actually wearing my Formula One shirt today, so it's pretty fun. Do recommend.
Love it. Super fitting as we get into your design updates in a few minutes. Thanks so much, Matt. Isaac.
Hi all, I am Isaac Braun and I am a product engineer on the team, and my favorite board game is probably Sequence, which could be considered a card game, but it's a family favorite and one that I really love.
Awesome. Definitely want to hear more about that as well. These are great options, folks. I love these. Last but not least, Detuan.
Hey folks, I'm Detuan. I'm a product engineer. Yeah, for me, I think it's just a classic Monopoly, even though I think I've never actually finished a single game of Monopoly. It always devolves into violence and chaos. But yeah, I think Monopoly, that's my answer.
Violence
I got to
and
play
chaos.
Monopoly with you. Yeah, right? Like, come on.
Sabotage,
Violence and
all of
chaos.
it's all there.
Love it.
Those are awesome. Thank you all for the great introductions. All right, we have a lot of content to get through today and not a lot of time, so we're going to get right into it. So I'm going to change it up, switch it over to Mel to introduce some of our CDN updates with 5.0. Mel, take it away.
Taking it away. All right, so I lost my mouse. Here we go. So I wanted to share some of the 5.0 CDN changes that occurred. So first up, we have the Calcite CDN link format has changed. So in the example that I'm sharing right now, we have a notice displayed at the bottom, and here's the code for that notice. And for comparison's sake, I'm just going to uncomment out this line so we can look at the two CDN links before and after, apples to apples. So you can see that the Calcite, the old link has this calcite.esm.js. That's no longer needed in the 5.0 link, so it's a lot shorter. And then also in the newer link, you don't need to enter the patch anymore. So previously the patch was required, but now we'll just use the most recently released patch. And then the other CDN change that we have is when using the ArcGIS Maps SDK and Calcite together, there's a single script tag instead of multiple scripts. So I'm going to share this example with you. This is just straight from the Calcite docs tutorials. It's the Construct a Mapping App tutorial. And we're showing the LA parks and trails. And you can see we're zoomed in on Franklin Canyon Park. And we're using Calcite for the shell panel, and the map is displayed in a panel. And we got our action bar here. So looking at the code for that example, previously you needed to do a Calcite import and then also import the core API, include the theme, and then also have the map components, a script for the map components. But now you only need one script tag. Woo! So it's really easy. The new single script tag for the ArcGIS Maps SDK includes Calcite, like we were using down here, the core API, and the map components, as well as the chart components, coding components, common components, and AI components that aren't used in this example. So one script to rule them all. And the new script is also, or the new CDN is also module based. So you get the improvements with modules. And as you can see, we've still got, with our single script tag, our map of the LA parks. And since there were so many things included in the single script tag, if you ever forget, you can just copy the CDN link here and go to a new tab and put in the /index.js, and you see we've got the core API, AI, charts, coding, common, and map components, and then your favorite, the Calcite components. And you can also see which version of Calcite is being used. That is all for me. Kitty?
Awesome, Mel. Thank you so much for sharing those great updates. Hopefully folks find that much easier to use and implement in their solutions as they migrate over from the 3 and 4 versions of Calcite being the 3 version and the JavaScript being version 4 to 5.0 as we're now in sync with semantic versioning. And didn't mention this earlier, but if folks have any questions throughout the presentation, we are monitoring the chat and we will do some live answering. So please feel free to do that. Right now, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, so we'll move on to the next presentation that we have. But we can always come back if folks have any questions about the CDN later on. So next up, we're going to switch gears and focus on some of the design improvements part of 5.0. And Aaron is going to talk about some of our action redesign. Aaron, take it away.
All right. So here, I'm talking about our new design for actions. Basically, actions are smaller than they used to be. This affects all scales, small, medium, and large. Here, I'm only showing the medium scale. We can see that actions used to be 48 pixel buttons. Now they are 32 pixel buttons. This brings it in line at all scales. It brings it in line with most of our other components in their standard scale sizes. So if you think of buttons and inputs, this matches that same size. The action bars themselves, though, are the same size they were before. We have added spacing between the actions and around the actions to keep action bars at their same size in the hierarchy stack. But because the actions are smaller, you can now fit more actions in a bar before overflow takes over. A couple of reasons why we did this, the two primary reasons. This first one is to support selection modes out of the box in Action Group. So in this example, you can see that I can select a mode of selection, and then I can select multiple modifiers for that selection, all built in by setting selection modes. I don't have to build this manually anymore. The next biggest improvement of making them smaller is the overall effect on UI density. You can see here in the before and after, it's pretty significant. Like in here, I can see probably maybe 4 more list items in this view before it starts to scroll. You can see that before a longer string of this length would start to wrap, and in 5.0, it no longer does that. Some other small improvements are icon alignment has been cleaned up with the size change. And I think finally, A big one is that before the default for actions was a solid appearance. So you always had this white background. You could change this manually to transparent. We found that most often that didn't happen, and so you often got these kind of odd hover states kind of colliding with each other. And now they default to transparent. So this is how this all comes together. That's basically it. Thank you so much. Back to Katie.
Awesome, Aaron. We did get a question in the chat regarding some of the redesign, because you mentioned with the list items that there's now more real estate there. The question is, can we add more actions in the action bar as a select all and extent?
That isn't built in, but yeah, you should be able to. Yeah, there's no built-in select all functionality, but yes, there is more room for it. So yeah, you should be able to add that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Aaron. Appreciate seeing all those great updates. And yeah, if there are any follow-ups with that question or others on the action redesign, please do feel free to ask in the chat. All right, thanks, Aaron. We're going to continue with some additional design updates with Matt, who's going to talk through some of our token improvements and some of the overall branding that you can add to your solutions. So Matt, take it away.
All righty. I am sharing my screen now, and there's a very well-timed train, I think, about to roll by. So sorry if you hear that. All right. So first, we're going to look at a lot of color token changes. First up with specifically some dark mode changes. I'm going to be flipping between a few tabs back and forth. If you keep an eye out for this chip that I'll have on a lot of these tabs, it'll let you know what version we're looking at. And you can see a lot of these background surfaces are going to be changing. In the past, we've referred to these as foreground and background. You'll be familiar with, and in the future, as I'll cover in a moment, we're going to be referring to these as surface. And so you can sort of see that the direction of these change of these surfaces have sort of flipped in a way that matches light mode. So you can see that 5.0 sort of follows that contrast in a way that light mode does. Flipping over to surface, you can see that the background, foreground 1, 2, and 3 here will now connect to surface 1, 2, 3, and 4 in 5.0. The background, foreground, and foreground colors are still available in 5.0. They're just deprecated right now, which means that they are marked for removal in 6.0. So that'll be next year. So they do still function. You'll see as I scroll through some of the code here, they do still work, and they are being used to fill these divs right here. And so they are functional, but they are marked for removal. So our components will be moving over to using these new surface colors. And that's the terminology that we're going to be using just to sort of clean up the story for how we're referring to a lot of our surfaces using foreground versus background, because those terms are very relative, whereas surface gives us a lot more flexibility where we're actually applying those layers. Sorry, forced Chrome into giving me a new tab there. Let's zoom out a little bit here to cover some border color updates. This is very focused onto light mode. These color updates, you'll see on the top left here, that border 1, 2, and 3 did update the actual values. And so that changes a lot of the colors in light mode. For a lot of these components, you'll see have direct changes as I flip back and forth between the versions. It doesn't affect the dark mode quite as much. However, we did change some of the mapping for some components for some of these color tokens. So for instance, some of these will move from using border 1 to border 2, just to change our hierarchy. So that does affect some dark mode components in some instances. But for the most part, it is a light mode change. All right, the next few are going to be very highlight color change, or highlight color focused, or for a lot of our selection modes for components. Starting with just the table and then date range picker, because these are just receiving direct updates and not necessarily new options. You'll see that we're losing this sort of border styling on the left-hand side. It is just keeping the highlight effect now. And you'll see in dark mode especially, as this lighter color is being used, we're improving this overall contrast with some of the text color changes as well. But this focus is mainly focusing in on that change in the blue color, the lighter blue that we're updating, which you'll know or maybe recognize in the actions that Aaron just covered. You'll see we have a new option for that as well, which the default being transparent for the initial background, but the selection appearance has a new value option for highlight. We're not deprecating the neutral, which is the default one that is staying around for actions, but we do have this additional one in 5.0 for using this new highlight color. Let me zoom in a little extra bit here so that can be seen easily. And this does affect those same variations that Aaron was just looking at with the horizontal ones as well. Couple more highlight related changes on selection-based changes. I'm going to zoom out a little more here. That's not bad. So for tile group, for when these have selection enabled, these ones will have a new variant or a new selection appearance, I should say, again, similar to the action bars for a selection appearance for highlight. And we will be deprecating the border selection appearance. So you'll see that third one there. I'm actually going to zoom in a little bit more and we can focus on the light mode here just to make sure that is visible. So as you'll know, remember from looking at the table, we are moving away from this previous selection appearance we had with the left-hand border. And again, deprecated, meaning that it is still available in 5.0. It is marked for deprecation. And in 6.0, we will be looking to fully remove it. But this is still available in 5.0, but marked for deprecation. And of course, scrolling down, this affects dark mode as well. And as you may notice, you're going to be seeing multiple changes with the text color changes, icon color changes, and the surface changes as I flip between these tabs for a lot of these components. So that's why we're covering a lot of things here. Almost done though. Last one for these selections is list items. I know it's a very popular component. Same idea. We have the border appearance, which again, going to be deprecated, same story. And we are moving over to the highlight. So this is now available in 5.0 and the border is going to be deprecated. That's that. Pretty straightforward. Now for something slightly more involved, might have to disable my video here to show it clearly, but this is not a color token focus, but this is for our, or this is color token focus actually, but this one is for our focus color specifically. So in 3.3, you'll see that when our brand color has been defined, and specifically on the body, this also was inherited into our focus color. So you'll see as I am tabbing through these focus targets, is receiving this violet color as well. But it is actually not something that I can define and call to this div container here. It's not actually something I can apply to that. But in 5.0, which this is just a split version here, you can see that it is still keeping our blue focus color. However, if I change this body to the root level and save that, you'll see that in 3.3, this was the same thing, but in 5.0, now it is inheriting that same color. And we have not defined the focus color here. So if you do want the focus color to inherit your brand color, you can set it at the root level. Notably, there's one other way to do this. You can also set this on the class that is used for our modes, and that is Calcite mode light or dark or auto, depending on how you have things set up. I don't have it actually set up for this right now because I have it automatically inheriting my operating system's color mode. But when you have that set up, that will also inherit the focus or the brand color into the focus color. And just a quick another way to demo this into an actual interface. This is when, again, it is applied just to the body onto the brand color. In 3.3, we can see we have that violet color. And in 5.5, it is still using the blue. As I click around these elements, we have the blue focus color with the violet brand color. But if I change this to the root level and save that, we'll see that in 5.0, we can have it inherit that color. And that is a new functionality there. Last thing, and everyone's favorite, Comic Sans. We previously, not every component had been properly inheriting all of the font family. When a font family had been set, I don't think it was trickling into every single component. And you'll see that now it is. Simple as that. If I open this up, there we go. Pretty easy before and after. And basically just a fix. And I think that should be it for me. I don't know if any questions came through. I saw some things in the chat. Is there anything I can address?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. Those are some great updates. Really looking forward to especially that dark and light changes that we've been making and we've been working on. I know the team has been working on that for over a year. So kudos to you and the rest of the team for working through all of those changes. Really appreciate all of those great updates across the tokens and the consistency that's been delivered. We did have a question unrelated that came up. I'm going to hand it over to Isaac to answer. It is how to install the Maps SDK for JavaScript with 5.0 and Calcite with 5.0. Isaac.
Yeah, thanks, Kitty. I'm here on the ArcGIS Maps SDK for JavaScript page, or developer site, I should say, under Programming Patterns, Framework and Tooling Setup, and Vite, which is where I found this little snippet to share. When using NPM or another package manager to install these packages, you still do, in comparison to the CIDN, still do need to install them separately via these 3 different packages. So in this example, npm install ArcGIS map components, core, and then Esri / Calcite components to get all 3 of those into your project.
Awesome. Thanks, Isaac. It's great tip and great resource. I think was posted in the chat for folks as well that want to do additional follow-up on that. Great question. Next up is back to Isaac to talk through some of our feature enhancements across all of the components since our last release 3.3 back in September. So Isaac, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you again. Yeah, just making sure I was sharing the right thing. All right, so first up, we have Dialog's full screen disabled property that was added in 5.0. Previously, without this property, Dialog's default behavior on smaller screen sizes, as you'll see here, there we go, with the dialog open, was to snap to full screen on smaller screen sizes. So if there's scenarios where you want to maintain the context of the background, this full screen disabled property can now be used to prevent that behavior. So if I open up both here in 3.3 and comparing with 5.0, now with this property, as the screen size gets smaller, it does not have that snapping behavior. So it just great to make sure the context is maintained when needed. Next up, we have Block's new content end slot, which is a great option for placing non-interactive content into the block header. It is placed after the header and description text, but before, it's not shown here, but before the icon start or the collapse icon, or I believe there's a controls slot as well here. And this is super useful for scenarios where a block needs to be differentiated from others. As you can see here, these 2 examples of maybe one of these is new or one is in beta, without adjusting or affecting the starting alignment of the block. And you can see here this chip group is tossed into the content end slot there. Next, we have the new loading property on the text area component. This is fairly straightforward to display this busy indicator that animates across the top of the component. So in scenarios when the text area component is in a busy state or a loading state, this property can be added to easily provide visual feedback and make sure that's communicated well. This also brings text area in line with our other input based components that have this loading property. Next, we have some refined UI and UX for the prefixText and sufficText properties, for the input number, and input text components. Previously, here in version 3.3, they had a more heavily styled appearance with this background and border. And this caused some potential problems where it could be confused with a clickable element because of their styling. But now in 5.0, they have been refined and cleaned up a little bit, which reduces visual noise overall, but also removes that possibility of confusing them with clickable elements. You can see here the prefixText and suffixText properties being used. Next, we have Carousel's improved controls and pagination. This includes two different changes. First up, there was some inconsistency with the way that the carousel was displaying with just one carousel item. You can see here in version 3.3 with the arrow type set to edge. With just one item, there's no pagination dot displayed and the arrows were displayed. But if we switch the arrow type to inline, those arrow controls disappear and there's still no pagination dot. So there is just some inconsistency in the behavior there. So now in 5.0 with one item, regardless of the arrow type or the autoplay state, one pagination dot will be displayed when there is one item and no arrow controls are displayed. So you can see here as I'm cycling through the different arrow types, they do not appear in any of those setups. And then again, with autoplay, it doesn't, or if autoplay is enabled, that does not display when there's only one item, again, regardless of arrow type. In addition, a new property, pagination disabled, has been added. So you can see here, if I toggle this on, our pagination dots disappear completely. So this can be used in more custom setups where the pagination controls or arrow controls are being done in a custom manner outside of the carousel component. And so it just provides more options for configuration while also cleaning up and making sure the carousel is more consistent and communicates its state clearly. Last but not least, we have the updateSize method, which has been added to the Dialog, Sheet, and Shell panel components. And this method can be used to programmatically update the size or dimensions of these components after the initial render. You can see the signature here where we can provide both an inline or a block size to change or to resize the component to. So you can see here I am displaying a dialog that is resizable and draggable. And one key thing to note is that this method does respect the design token values that also affect size. So here I don't have the exact tokens listed, but they follow the same pattern of min size X, max size X, etc. So I have these token values set to the respective values. So it is opened up at 400 and 600. But if I use the updateSize method under the hood through these actions to change, for example, the width or the inline size to this min size, it goes down to the token value that is set. Same with max for both dimensions, as well as something like increasing or decreasing the width or height by 20 pixels as as an example. So this provides some great options for programmatically controlling these components, either via other actions in the UI, or if something needs to be changed behind the scenes as users take specific actions. And one more thing I wanted to note is that we can reset the size back to either what it was initially rendered as, or if these tokens are set, what values they are set to. And I believe that is it. Back to you, Kitty.
Awesome, Isaac. Those are some really great enhancements, and appreciate all the work that the team's been working on. Really like that Dialog full screen disabled property. That's pretty sweet to see. A lot of configuration options available for folks. We did have one question come up in the chat, believe related to that last or second to last example that you had regarding the pagination. Says, can the pagination go in for example, in the footer of a host panel?
Ooh, it's an interesting question. I may not have a super great answer, but if I'm understanding that correctly, the default pagination dots from the carousel component, I don't believe would be able to be placed in the footer of a panel, but with the new pagination disabled property, you could turn off the pagination dots and then create a custom set of pagination controls or dots that can be placed in that footer. And someone add any context if you have it, but I believe that is the way that could be set up.
Awesome. Thanks, Isaac. And yeah, if there's a follow-up there that folks wanted to consider, just throw that into the chat. We can always revisit after our next section. Oh, also the question, I guess, also applies to tables. So I don't know if you can speak to that, Isaac, with the pagination in the table.
Sure. I think it would be similar. They're built-in elements, not like slotted elements. So it's not like you could move them to another area. But again, it could be a custom setup using methods on the component to control the pagination through a custom set of elements in another location, for example, in the footer.
Awesome. Thanks, Isaac. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, that there's configuration options available depending on use cases. But definitely feel free to follow up with us, and we can also chat further post live stream as well. Our next section is going to talk about some of the breaking changes, because 5.0 is a breaking change release. So there were removals across the design system, and there was also some pretty large visual changes that took place. So for those updates, going to hand it over to Ditwan. Take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Kitty. Hopefully you guys can see my screen. Yeah, so we'll start off with some design updates that the notice component got. Yeah, the notice component was updated to reduce visual overlap with the alert component. They did previously look a bit similar. So now, with these changes, it should be more easily distinguished as a non-critical message component. And there's also been a new appearance property added to the notice component, where the default is outline fill. You can see that at the top right here. Yeah, so this provides a stronger visual emphasis than it previously had, but you can also set it to transparent for a less obtrusive look that you can see here. And yeah, it's pretty short and sweet update, but at the bottom you can also see what the various kind property values would look like with the new design updates. So that's neutral, info, success, warning, etc. And then we'll get into things that have been removed, starting with components. Yeah, so the first one is modal. That's been removed, where you can use the dialog component as a replacement. Shell center row, that's out of there. You can use the shell panel and slot that in the shell's panel bottom slot as a replacement or an alternative. Tile select and tile select group, Those are gone as well. You can use the tile and tile group components instead. Tip group, tip manager. Those are all gone. You can use the carousel component instead. Next up, we got properties, values, and events. Some properties that have been removed are the color pickers allow empty property. That's gone, but you can use the clearable property instead. Combo boxes, combo box items, text label property is gone. And in its place, you can use the heading property. And that heading property is now required. For the values, you have inputs text area value for the type property. You can use the text area component instead. It's a standalone component. The radio button group's grid value for the layout property, that's gone. This doesn't have a replacement. It actually never worked, apparently, so that's out of there. Steppers, Calcite stepper item change event. That's gone, and it's replaced, or I guess you can use Calcite stepper change event instead. Yeah, and then lastly, we have slots. A bunch of removed slots. Action bars, bottom action slot is gone. You can use the action end slot instead. Actions tooltip slot, that's gone. You can use the tooltip component instead. Blocks icon and control slots, those are gone. You can use the content start and content end slots for placing icons specifically, and you can use the actions end slot instead of using the control slot. Cards title slot, that's been removed. You can use the icon end or the content end slot instead. Dialog's content slot is gone. You can use the custom content slot instead. Flow items footer action slot, that's been removed. You can use the footer start, footer end, or just the footer slot in its place. Panels footer action slot, that's been removed. You can use the footer start or footer end slots instead. Shell's center row slot has been removed. You can use, similar to the previous one I said, you can use the shell panel component in the shell's panel bottom slot instead. And finally, tiles content start and content end slots has been removed, and you can use the content top and content bottom slots instead. Okay, so hopefully you guys took notes, because there'll be a quiz. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Awesome, Ditwan.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We don't have any questions in the chat, but we'll let folks kind of catch up, see if there's anything that does pop up. But really appreciate all those great updates. I know breaking changes can be quite hard for folks as you move to different versions, but hopefully, as Ditwan showed those comparisons for the migration plan, hopefully that can help as you migrate your apps from version 3 to version 5. So lastly, before we conclude, I want to show some updates for folks on what's coming and where we're at. So as mentioned at the top of the conversation, the JavaScript team has now moved to semantic versioning. So now both Calcite and the JavaScript are in sync with one another. So they're both on version 5. So as mentioned in this blog late last year, that's something that that we've been coordinating on. And with that, we've had some great new enhancements, including that CDN update we mentioned earlier today. We also have our 5.0 release blog if folks want to read more about some of the updates that have been introduced here today. And we have even more details on our website on the developers.arcgis.com site, just detailing some of those really great updates and others that we have not touched on today. And then lastly, we also have our Developer and Technology Summit coming up in 2 weeks. And we have a couple of different sessions for folks to be aware of that are in the UI UX track, including here, Calcite, what's new, some of what we presented here today and more will be presented, and including what is coming this year. We also have some accessibility presentations that are available for folks, including showing what is possible with JavaScript and Calcite, and some really great sessions on user research. And then we have a part 4 series, part 3 and 4 really focus on layouts and how you can build really beautiful apps and interfaces using Calcite and Maps SDK. And then there's also another accessibility session focused on your apps that's available, and Eyes on Design, which has been really popular in the past. And then lastly, how to build better UX with your pop-ups. So those, we hope to see folks attend in person, but there's also some live stream options for folks that aren't able to attend as well. All right, so that said, I'm going to check if we have any new questions in the chat. Oh, Aaron, this might be a question for you. Does Action Button have a slot for an image?
It doesn't have a direct slot for an image. It has an icon prop, and you can, of course, use the default slot to kind of put whatever you want in there. Buyer beware, I'm not sure what, depending on what you put in there, what the end result would be. But yeah, you can always use the default slot.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. Great question. I don't see any other questions in the chat, but we hope that folks have really enjoyed the updates with 5.0, and we look forward to seeing all your beautiful apps that you're developing. And just appreciate everyone taking the time on this morning's live stream. And thank you to the team for all the great work that we're showing, and hope everyone has a great day. Thanks so much. See ya.
Thanks, everybody.